Story 1. It was the middle of January. It was late at night, past about 10 o'clock. I was out on my balcony with my feet over the railing on my laptop when all of a sudden I heard from down below on the ground someone yelling something. They were yelling, "Yo," and "Hey, you." At first I didn't move, taking the assumption that whoever it was talking to someone else. They couldn't possibly be calling up to me, but they followed with, "Yeah, no, you. Hey, you, up there." My heart skipped a beat, because now I knew they were talking to me. My main question was, why? I set my laptop down on the chair and looked over the railing down to the ground below. There was a guy in front of a car in the parking lot looking up at me, and he said, "Yeah, you." I asked, "What's up?" He told me to come down there so he could show me something cool. I took a better look at this guy. Some guy with a baseball hat and long sleeves on. I assumed he was just some drunk dude messing with me, so I ignored him and sat back down. When I did that, I heard him laughing as he said, "I'm gonna come up there and skin you alive." I stood up again and looked at him. He had this unsettling, sinister smile on his face. I literally opened my mouth to shout something back at him, but for some reason I just didn't bother. I grabbed my laptop and went inside and shut the sliding door. I expected him to yell a couple of things afterwards, but I didn't hear anything. So as uncomfortable as that made me feel, I felt much safer being inside. I chalked it up to just the usual meth-soused lunatic on the street, but things became worse when the silence of the room was broken by pounding on my condo door, accompanied with a voice yelling obscenities and threats at me. It was the guy again. The bangs were so loud, I was genuinely concerned he was going to break down the door. All I could do was yell. "I'm calling the police," I said loudly. It didn't faze him at all. His bangs turned into these carving and stabbing noises. It probably all lasted for about a minute or two, but it felt like a century. Until he gave me one more loud, angry bang, screamed one more obscenity at me, and then he left. I knew because I checked through the peephole. I called the police after the ordeal just to show them and report it to them. On the other side of the door, there were several stab marks in it, confirming I did hear him stabbing at it, and confirming this man did have a knife. I hope nobody was harmed that night, half expecting to find a skinned body hanging on a wall somewhere. I mean, I doubt he knew me. I just think he was really high and most likely not functioning with all his cards, or on planet Earth for that matter. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. Story 2. I was looking for a car to buy for my son's 18th birthday. I was searching all the typical car websites, Cars.com, eBay Motors. They were all overpriced as expected. Craigslist was the only place to find an actual deal. About a week into my search, I found a 2005 Dodge Nitro. It had about 87,000 kilometers on it, no accidents, no damage, and in relatively good condition for only $3,500. This seemed like a steal for such a reliable car with such low mileage. The seller lived about 20 kilometers from me, which was a reasonable drive when looking for a car. I gave him a call to set up a time to come check it out. The man sounded normal on the phone. He assured me there was absolutely no problems with the car, and he introduced himself as Ken. I brought along $3,500 in cash, even though I planned to wiggle him down on the price as much as possible. I pulled up the dirt road to Ken's property about 15 minutes early. It was a tiny little house with a decent-sized property. The garage was open, so I looked over to see if anyone was inside. But except for an unusual amount of car parts, it was empty. The car was nowhere in sight, and the only car I saw on the property was an old pickup truck. I went over to the front door to check the house numbers. It was the right address. The doorbell button was missing, so I knocked on the front door. There was no one there. I knocked every once in a while for exactly 5 minutes before deciding to give the man a call. So I dialed his number, and I heard the sound of his phone ringing from inside the house. I was extremely confused at this point. Now, I knew I had the right house. I didn't understand why, if he was home, why he wasn't answering the door. I decided I had to take a peek through one of the windows to see if anyone was inside. Peering through the glass, I couldn't really see much as it was pretty dark inside the house. I saw a very old-fashioned dining room set. Across from that, I saw somebody standing at the back door of the house, just kind of staring outside.
stopped moving at all. I figured that must have been Ken, so I knocked on the window, but he didn't move an inch. There was no gate or anything to the backyard, it was just a wide open yard, since this was a rural area. I simply walked around the house to the backyard. I didn't understand how he couldn't hear me when I got to the back door. I made a shocking realization that the figure standing by the door was a taxidermied human being. He looked like he had been put together with random body parts all stitched together. I ran straight back the way I came and back to my car. I looked up one last time before driving off. The blinds to the windows I had peeked into had been shut, but I could see two of the blinds creased open. Somebody was at that window watching me. I could probably guess I had the gas pedal to the floor the whole way home. The whole situation still makes no sense. There was no Dodge Nitro, just the stitched together human. Given that there was no car there, it leads me to believe that whoever that man was wasn't planning on selling me anything. And that also leads me to the disturbing thought that I was very close to becoming a lifeless statue staring out that man's back door. Story 3. It was 2015. I went to see some low-key movie that probably wasn't at the top of most people's must-see movie lists. I was the only one in the theater, just like I expected. I sat myself right in the center seat of one of the higher-up rows and put my feet up on the seat in front of me. About 20 minutes into the movie, I noticed someone a few aisles down. I didn't notice them coming in. The theater was dark because the scene of the movie at the time, it was dark in the room. They weren't sitting in a seat like a normal person, though all I saw of them was the top half of their head peering over one of the seats. He was looking in a direction that definitely was not the screen. It was still too dark to be able to tell if they were looking directly at me or not. But when the scene changed to a brighter background, the whole theater got brighter. Bright enough to see what they were looking at. And they looked like they were basically looking right at me. I noticed their face was so pale and lifeless looking, and their hair was messy and wiry. I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. Now, I'm an introvert, or just an awkward person, basically, so I didn't really want to ask if there was something wrong. I viewed that as a confrontation. The screen went darker again, and at the same time, the person lowered down behind the chair completely until I couldn't see them anymore. They were completely hidden from my view. I couldn't concentrate on the movie now. I was very uncomfortable and actually quite terrified. I didn't get up though. I stayed put in my seat. Many scenes in the movie passed and I almost forgot about what was happening. Almost. Just when I was getting back into the movie, the person's head appeared from behind a seat again. This time much closer. Only like 3 rows of seats away from me. I actually let out a holy shit! But it genuinely made me jump. Now, I was able to see more detail and features in their face. They actually looked lifeless, their eyes motionless. They hung open, but still, I couldn't tell if they were looking directly at me or not. They looked to be a man with long, unkept hair. So I noped the fuck out of my seat and went down to the aisle, to the exit. I had to pass the row in which the person was in to get to the exit door. As I passed the row, I looked down and, well, I expected to see the rest of the person's body sitting hunched behind the seats. Instead, what I saw was something you'd see in a nightmare. There was some guy basically laying on the floor holding up a severed head stabbed onto a stick. I didn't wait around to see if it was a sick joke or something, or if it was even real or not. I ran for it through the exit door. I went out the back exit of the building to the parking lot. I drove home in a panic, heart racing. That head looked so real. I got home and did some research about possible recent murders or missing people in the area. I found something after browsing a list of missing people. In the area, I found the picture of a 16-year-old boy named Daryl Hawkins, who had gone missing a month prior. Based on the picture, I found his face. It could have matched the head I saw in the theater. Of course, that could be my brain trying to connect any similarities. But the hair, the nose, the eyes, they looked like they could actually be a match. The next day I simply made a call to their theater and told them the story. They suggested they'd check their cameras and see if anything strange came up. I gave them my number to reach me if they needed, but I never heard anything back from them.